Hello everyone, welcome. Today, I want to talk about a truly special and effective way to learn English vocabulary, unlocking it through the power of short stories and emotion. I know that many of you have tried the traditional methods. You've probably spent hours staring at long lists of words, trying to drill them into your memory. Perhaps you've made flashcards or used language learning apps, and yet those words just don't seem to stick. They feel distant, abstract, like something you can't quite grasp. I understand that feeling because I've been there myself. When I was learning new languages, I found that simply memorizing words out of context was a real struggle. But everything changed when I discovered the magic of stories. When I read a story that touched my heart, that made me laugh or cry, the words became a part of me. They were no longer just entries in a dictionary. They were alive, filled with emotion and meaning. They became part of the narrative, and that made all the difference. One day, a student came to me, looking frustrated. "Teacher," he said, "I'm trying so hard to learn new words, but I keep forgetting them. I study and study, but it feels like I'm getting nowhere." I could see the discouragement in his eyes. He was ready to give up. I smiled and said, "Let's try something different. Let's try learning vocabulary through stories, through the emotions they evoke." He looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism, but he was willing to give it a try. You see, when you learn words through stories, they become much more than just isolated units of meaning. They become intertwined with the narrative, with the characters, with the feelings that the story evokes. It's like the difference between seeing a single, beautiful butterfly in a picture and witnessing a whole cloud of them fluttering through a sun-drenched meadow. The story provides the context, the ecosystem in which the words thrive. It gives them a home, a place to live and breathe and interact with each other. Each word becomes a thread in the rich tapestry of the narrative. I once knew a student who was struggling with the word melancholy. She understood the basic definition, a feeling of pensive sadness, but she couldn't quite grasp its nuances or how to use it correctly in a sentence. It remained a distant, abstract concept. Then, we read a beautiful short story together. It was about an old man sitting on a park bench, watching the leaves fall in autumn. He was remembering his youth, his lost love, the passage of time. The story described the old man's feeling as melancholy. Suddenly, the student understood. The word came alive for her. It was no longer just a definition in a dictionary. It was the gentle sadness of the old man, the beauty of the falling leaves, the bittersweet ache of memories. "Melancholy," she said. "It's like the feeling of the old man in the story, a sadness that is also beautiful in a way." She started using the word melancholy in her own writing and conversations, describing scenes and emotions with a newfound depth and sensitivity. She never forgot the word again, because it was now linked to a powerful image, a poignant feeling, a story that had touched her heart. Stories don't just help you remember individual words. They also help you understand how words are used in different situations, how they interact with each other to create meaning. This is crucial for developing true fluency. I remember another student who had learned the word resilient from a vocabulary list. He knew that it meant able to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions. but he wasn't sure how to use it correctly in a sentence. It felt awkward and unnatural when he tried. Then, we read a story together about a young woman who had faced many hardships in her life. She had lost her job, her home, and even her family. But she never gave up. She kept fighting, kept striving to rebuild her life. The story described her as resilient, a person who bounced back from every setback, stronger and more determined than before. The student had an aha moment. He saw how resilient was used to describe not just physical toughness, but also inner strength, the ability to persevere in the face of adversity. He started using the word in his own conversations, describing people he admired, characters in books and movies, even himself when he faced challenges. He understood that resilient was often used with words like spirit, person, or attitude. The story had provided him with a living example of how the word functioned in the real world. Another powerful aspect of learning vocabulary through stories is that it significantly improves long-term retention. The words become embedded in your memory, anchored by the emotions and the narrative. I had a student who was preparing for a major English proficiency exam. She was extremely anxious about forgetting the vast amount of vocabulary she had been studying. We started reading short stories together, focusing on stories that evoked a wide range of emotions: joy, sorrow, anger, fear, surprise, love. We read stories about courageous heroes, tragic lovers, mischievous children, wise elders, and everything in between. After a while, she noticed a remarkable difference in her ability to recall words. I can remember the words from the stories so much more easily than the words from my vocabulary lists, she told me. It's like the stories created a special place for them in my memory. This is because emotions create strong, lasting memories. They act as powerful anchors, securing the words in your mind, making them resistant to the erosion of time. When you link a word to a strong emotion, you're not just memorizing a definition. You're creating a vivid, multi-sensory experience that becomes a part of you. Moreover, learning vocabulary through emotion makes the entire process much more enjoyable and engaging. Let's face it, memorizing long lists of words can be tedious and monotonous. It can feel like a chore, something you have to force yourself to do. I once had a student who absolutely dreaded vocabulary lessons. He found them incredibly boring and struggled to stay motivated. He would stare at his vocabulary lists with a sigh, his mind wandering. So, we decided to try a different approach. We started reading humorous stories together, stories filled with witty dialogue, absurd situations, and comical characters. We laughed our way through tales of bumbling detectives, talking animals, and outrageous misunderstandings. The student's whole demeanor changed. He started looking forward to our lessons, eager to discover what hilarious adventures awaited us. Learning words through stories is actually fun, he exclaimed one day. I'm laughing so much that I don't even realize I'm learning. He was absorbing new vocabulary without even trying because he was fully engaged, entertained, and emotionally connected to the material. The stories had transformed learning from a chore into a pleasure. This is the magic of learning through emotion. It makes the process feel effortless, enjoyable, and deeply rewarding. Stories also have the remarkable ability to teach you different shades of meaning, the subtle nuances that distinguish similar words. This is essential for developing a rich and sophisticated vocabulary. I had a student who knew the word angry, but he used it to describe every situation where someone was upset, regardless of the intensity or the specific nature of their emotion. He didn't fully grasp the subtle differences between angry, furious, annoyed, irritated, enraged, and indignant. Then we started reading stories that showcased a wide spectrum of anger. We read a story about a man who was mildly annoyed by a noisy neighbor. We read another story about a woman who was irritated by a long wait at the doctor's office. We explored a story about a character who felt indignant after being falsely accused of something. We delved into a tale of a king who became enraged when his orders were disobeyed. And we read about a character who was absolutely furious after being betrayed by a close friend. Through these stories, the student began to discern the different levels of intensity and the specific contexts associated with each word. He learned that annoyed is a mild form of anger, often temporary and easily resolved. He saw that irritated suggests a slightly stronger feeling of impatience and displeasure. He understood that indignant involves a sense of moral outrage, a feeling of being wronged. He realized that enraged describes an intense, almost uncontrollable anger, while furious is even more extreme, often accompanied by a loss of self-control. By experiencing these words in the context of emotionally charged situations, the student developed a much deeper and more nuanced understanding of their meanings. He started using them with greater precision and accuracy in his own speaking and writing, conveying his emotions with more clarity and sophistication. Another way that stories enhance vocabulary acquisition is by demonstrating how words are used in conjunction with other words, forming collocations and phrases. This is something that is often overlooked when learning words in isolation. I had a student who had learned the word heavy, but he primarily used it to describe physical weight. He would say things like, "The box is heavy." He didn't realize the many other ways heavy could be used. Then we read a story that used heavy in a variety of contexts. The story described a heavy rain, a heavy silence, a heavy heart, and a heavy responsibility. The student was surprised by the versatility of the word. He saw that heavy could be used to describe not only physical weight, but also the intensity of weather, the oppressiveness of silence, the burden of sadness, and the weight of obligation. He started experimenting with heavy in his own sentences, creating phrases like a heavy workload, a heavy atmosphere, and heavy traffic. The story had opened his eyes to the rich tapestry of language, showing him how words combine and interact to create new meanings. So, how can you embark on this exciting journey of learning vocabulary through stories and emotion? It's actually quite simple. The first step is to find short stories that genuinely interest you. The genre doesn't matter. It could be anything you enjoy: fantasy, science fiction, romance, mystery, thriller, historical fiction, or even slice-of-life stories about everyday experiences. The key is to choose stories that resonate with you, that capture your imagination, that make you want to keep reading. As you read, pay close attention to the words that the author uses to describe the character's feelings, thoughts, and actions. Notice how these words contribute to the overall mood and atmosphere of the story. Try to connect the words to the emotions that the characters are experiencing. Imagine yourself in their shoes. How would you feel in that situation? What words would you use to describe your emotions? You might find it helpful to keep a vocabulary journal. This doesn't have to be anything fancy, just a simple notebook where you can record the new words you encounter. But instead of just writing down the definition, write down the entire sentence or even a short passage from the story that showcases the word in context. This will help you remember not only the meaning of the word, but also how it is used, what emotions it evokes, and what other words it typically appears with. For example, if you come across the word exhilarated in a story about a character who has just won a race, you might write down something like, "She felt exhilarated as she crossed the finish line, her heart pounding with triumph." This will create a much more vivid and memorable association than simply writing exhilarated, very happy and excited. Another excellent technique is to read aloud, especially passages that are particularly rich in emotional content. When you read aloud, you engage more of your senses. You hear the rhythm and flow of the language, you feel the words in your mouth, and you can even use your voice to express the emotions of the characters. This can significantly enhance your understanding and retention of new vocabulary. I had a student who started reading stories aloud to his younger brother. He would use different voices for each character, acting out their emotions with enthusiasm and gusto. He found that this made the stories come alive for both him and his brother. "Reading aloud helps me understand the words on a deeper level," he told me. "It's like I'm not just reading the story, I'm experiencing it." By embodying the characters and their emotions, he was creating powerful associations with the new vocabulary he was learning. It was no longer just about memorizing words. It was about feeling them, living them, making them his own. You can also discuss the stories you read with others. This could be with friends, family members, classmates, or even a language exchange partner. Talking about the characters, the plot, the themes, and especially the emotions conveyed in the stories provides an excellent opportunity to practice using the new vocabulary you've acquired. I often encourage my students to have lively discussions about the stories we read in class. They share their interpretations, debate the characters' motivations, and express their own emotional responses to the narratives. These discussions are not only intellectually stimulating, but also incredibly effective for reinforcing vocabulary acquisition. When students use new words in conversation, they are actively retrieving them from their memory, solidifying their understanding, and practicing their pronunciation and usage in a natural, communicative context. Remember, learning vocabulary is not merely about accumulating a large number of words. It's about developing a deep, nuanced understanding of how words are used to express emotions, ideas, and experiences. It's about building a rich and vibrant inner lexicon that allows you to communicate effectively and express yourself with precision and flair. Stories provide an ideal environment for this kind of deep learning. They offer a dynamic and engaging context in which words come to life, imbued with emotion and meaning. They are not just strings of letters on a page. They are windows into the human heart, portals to other worlds, vessels of shared experience. Just like an actor immerses themselves in a role, drawing upon their own emotional repertoire to bring a character to life, you can use the emotional power of stories to learn and internalize new vocabulary. By connecting with the characters, empathizing with their struggles and triumphs, and feeling the emotions that the story evokes, you create powerful and lasting associations with the words you encounter. So, I urge you to embrace the transformative power of stories. Let them be your guides on your vocabulary learning journey. Let them fill your mind with new words, your heart with emotion, and your life with a deeper appreciation for the beauty and power of language. Let them make learning English an exciting, enriching, and profoundly rewarding experience. And now I have a question for you, a question that I hope will spark your own reflections on this journey. What is a word or phrase that you have learned from a story that has had a particularly strong emotional impact on you? What is a word that, for you, is forever linked to a specific character, a powerful scene, or a deeply felt emotion? I would love to hear your thoughts, your stories, your personal connections to the living language that we are all exploring together.